focus, discipline. This is the Zero Excuses podcast. Each and every week, we talk to high-performing, inspirational athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders. We ask powerful questions to extract their tools, strategies, and life lessons for you to crush your excuses, to break out of your comfort zone, and accomplish your ambitious dreams and goals. Here's your host, Kenyon Zitska.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in to the Zero Excuses podcast. I'm really excited to have another awesome interview ready for you guys to listen to here. Today I'm talking with Jason Pockrandt. He is the author of Father-Daughter Conversations and also his journey to becoming the best father he possibly can for his own daughter. And selfishly, I was excited to talk to him because, I'm a father to a beautiful 3.5-year-old daughter. So there's a lot that I learned from this conversation, and I know that you're going to learn a lot too. Jason also tells his story about losing his father at a young age due to hard-fought battle with addiction. Now, I'm breaking this interview into two parts simply because our conversation went on for close to an hour and a half, and Jason was one of my most interactive guests that I've had to date. And towards the end of our interview, he kind of turns the tables on me and starts to dig into some of my own personal strategies and habits. So that's why I thought I would break this interview into two parts. This first part will be mostly Jason telling his story, and then next week I'll release the part two where Jason starts to grill me a little bit, and reminds me a lot of my consulting and coaching conversations. So this will also be a little bit of a good preview of working one-on-one with me. If that's been something you've been interested in and been on the fence, this will be a good opportunity for you to get a bit of a sneak peek into what that process will look like. But anyways, enough on that. Just have some real quick reminders. If you are interested in working with me at one-on-one, you can apply at kenyonzitska.com/discipline. This is a very intensive program where we'll build the habits and the strategies and the routines so that you can accomplish everything that you need to accomplish to reach your ultimate goals and fulfill your vision. Again, kenyonzitska.com/discipline. Only taking people on the wait list at this point, but that'll get you to the front of the line to get notified when a slot does open. And lastly, don't forget to leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, and also share this with some friends and family members who would be interested in hearing these conversations and strategies. You can do so at kenyonzitska.com/iTunes. All right, guys, enough on that. Let's hop into the conversation with Jason. Jason, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join us here on the Zero Excuses podcast. Excited to have this conversation. I know you and I have a lot in common, and I'm sure this conversation is probably going to go a million different directions, but how you doing tonight, man?
Oh, man, I'm fantastic. Happy to be here. Excited to share some insight with you guys and your audience.
Yeah, so you are a TEDx speaker, you're a entrepreneur, and you're also an author of Father-Daughter Conversations. Give us a more detailed introduction. Give us a little insight into your background, and maybe dive into your background a little bit. Tell us a little bit how you arrived at what you do today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. First off, Kenyon, thank you for having me on the show. I did come up with about 5 or 6 excuses as to why I wasn't going to be able to do this tonight. And then I realized that there was 0 excuses as to why I could not be on the show with Kenyon. So
right on, man.
But yeah, as you said, 2-time best-selling author. The first book I wrote was The Confident Father's Guidebook, 5 Steps to Personal Transformation, Rediscover Your Worth. And then the second one was Father-Daughter Conversations, compilation of stories I put together with 10 awesome dads, plus myself, to share the insight for new dads to figure out what to do when we have daughters. Because frankly, a little bit about me, my background, I had lost my dad. I lost my dad to a tough battle. He suffered an addiction. He had a pill addiction that took his life. And so that happened when I was 17 years old. I spent the next few years kind of struggling to get by. Went to college, chose that as my drug of choice. And then I did that for the next few years and then got into the real world, thought I'd, find a job, the classic American dream, graduate college with a bunch of debt, find a job, couldn't stand. I ended up working third shift, 5 days a week, 8 hours a night. Or I used to say 8 hours a night, 7 days a week, doing the thing that I hated. So that went on for about 2 years. And then I kind of started poking around the self-help space, picking up all the books I could find, the cliche that we all did.
Right.
And then that's when I stumbled across Dan Miller. I always say there's a blog post I wrote, the 3 books that changed my life. And it was Dan Miller, John Acuff, and Dave Ramsey. So went through financial peace with my girlfriend at the time, my wife now. And we got engaged. We went through financial peace. We paid off half of our debt at the time. We saved up half of the cash we needed to pay for our wedding. We bootstrapped that. And then young and in love. And then lo and behold, 28 years old, I found out I was going to be a baby. Found out I was going to be a baby. It was crazy. Found out I was having a baby, and we were having a little girl. And I just remember how much that shook me, and it scared the hell out of me, to be honest. Not having a dad my whole life and going through that and trying to figure that out and still answering these questions and battling those demons. And I just couldn't figure out what to do, and I couldn't figure out how to get my message out there, and try to have a voice. I felt like I didn't have much of a voice during my childhood. Right. And so that's the reason for the first book, was to just kind of get my message out there and kind of more personal healing.
Yeah. So I don't mean to interrupt, but your father had battled this addiction as far back as you can remember, or
yes.
Was it something sudden that came up?
Yeah, no, he had actually gotten into a bad car accident. So my dad was hit by a drunk driver and it messed up his back. And then he got the luck of the draw and just got connected with one of those bad doctors. And then the pain medication led to more pain medication. And then it was just that classic story. I don't know, back, you call it the 90s or whatever, whatever the somas were hot. And that's honestly, that's what I remember. I just remember that somas were one of the prescription pills that took a strong hold on him. And, but yeah, so as far as I remember, I watched him battle that and go through that and until he passed away. So
yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I also lost my father at a relatively young age after I joined the military, so I definitely can empathize with what you went through. So
I did not know that about you. How old were you?
I was 21. I was 3 years into my naval career at that point. So I lost my father to leukemia. So yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely can be tough, and when you're halfway across the world, and whether it's a disease, they're both diseases in their own right. So
absolutely.
So, but getting back to your background, I mean, obviously, you and your wife sound like your daughter was not quite a planned occurrence. This was kind of took you by surprise, or was this, was this something you guys were planning?
No, it was a perfectly pleasant delight. How do you say I met my wife when I was 19. Yeah, I met my wife when I was 19. So we've been together ever since then. We've been married for almost 5 years now in May. So we've been together for, I told the guy earlier, I think that's like half a century or a bicentennial or something. But yeah, we had it all planned out, right? Everything was going to be perfect. And we were, we graduated college. I got a criminal justice degree for all the wrong reasons. I was working hard, and we got married. And then we were like, oh, we're young and in love. We'll stay married for 2 years and just, it'll be great. And then we'll have kids, because I didn't have a dad. So of course, my whole desire was to become a father and, fill that void. Right. And so, one day, but I wasn't expecting it when I was 28, but yeah, I was actually working at, a funny story, quick story. I was working at Target at the time. I was the logistics team leader. So I ran the entire back room of the in-stocks team. It was fast and fun, and it was pretty awesome. I was making good money. And that's around the time I'd gone through financial peace. And I was hooked on John Acuff. I went and I volunteered at a financial peace event about 3 hours away from here. So I met John Akoff and Dave Ramsey's daughter, and I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, Dan Miller, I'm coming for you. I'm moving to Tennessee, baby. It's going to be phenomenal. I was like, I'm literally just going to go put myself right next to all of them. It'll be great. And we went to Tennessee. We took a vacation, right? We left in March. We went down for a week to visit my wife's cousin who lived there. And young and naive at the time, I had told my boss, who was actually younger than me, I was like, oh, I'm going to visit Tennessee. I love it down there. And I came back to work, and then everyone said, I thought you moved to Tennessee. They were like, what are you doing back? Like, they were serious, too. They said, Kristen told me you were leaving. I'm like, well, this is awkward. And so sitting around the leadership table there was really awkward.
Yeah.
And, but we had all intentions of going, and we were hell-bent, and we were going to leave in June, like June 1st, hell or high water. We were going to pack the car, and we were just going to go for it. And then we found out in February or January, I believe. We found out around January that we were having a baby. So
that changed the dynamic a little bit, huh?
So that was 2014, and I am still a proud resident of Bay City, Michigan in 2018.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't made it there yet, but
awesome. But I mean, obviously that was a blessing in disguise, because now you've kind of it sounds like you've kind of found a new purpose in life to help other fathers connect with their daughters and be the best fathers they can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, when I started the coaching in 2012, so I went through Financial Peace and then started financial coaching. I was like, man, these families don't need to struggle. Like, just do a budget. Like, it's not hard. Pay off some debt. Like, literally, stop struggling. It's not, as difficult. Like, and so I started financial coaching, and that's what morphed into kind of the whole life aspect of it. The life coaching, if you will, and transforming people. And then that evolved into serving fatherless fathers to help them rediscover their purpose and passion so they can live a legacy. And then adding having my daughter just kind of helped solidify for me, I guess, the purpose and the mission here in life, and helping dads, especially dads like me. It's one thing we don't have a dad, we don't have any mentors. And then, I tell people there's information all around the world on how to raise a man and how to raise a boy and how to be a warrior, how to man up and how to do everything. And I can't tell you, aside from Meg Meeker, father-daughter, or strong fathers, strong daughters, like, I can't tell you where at on the internet the information is abundantly available for men who are like, hey, you don't have a dad, and now you have a child, but bonus points, she's a girl. And I'm not sure if you know how those things work or not, but they're crazy. And good luck. Here you go, young man.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed that too. There's like all these, father-son weekends. I mean, there's the daddy-daughter dance at school. Aside from that, I really don't see a lot of resources out there. So I'm really, I'm stoked to, connect with you and see what you're all about here. But the book that you wrote, Father-Daughter Conversations, I mean, what was the void that you saw? What was the specific void that you saw to inspire you to write this book? I mean, what aside from what you just mentioned, what at the core, what did you see was missing?
Well, honestly, for me, it was coming from a place of not knowing anything, like not knowing at all what to do. So I literally, I remember we took the pregnancy test 3 times because I thought, it was just faded and the line wasn't working right. And then I was like, the plus sign means it's broken, right? And and we actually, I remember we had a Toastmasters meeting that night as well. I was at a Toastmasters meeting. My wife, I had Toastmasters on that Thursday night, and my wife dropped me off. And then we'd taken the pregnancy test that day, and I was like, I cannot miss Toastmasters, though. I have a speech to give tonight. And so she still took me out there. And then I remember she left and then came back, and she came back and picked me up, and she was like crying and eating gummy worms and stuff. And so we went to the doctor's that next morning, and I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and she took another test, and the doctor comes back, and she looks at me, and she goes, "Congratulations." I said, "For what?"
Well, what are we here for?
And she looks at my wife and goes, "You're pregnant." And I was like, "Oh boy." And then I was like, and then the next response was like, "Oh shit, I'm going to be a dad."
Yeah.
So
Shit, what do I do now?
I literally had no idea. So the book itself was me reaching out. I went online and I wanted as many as I could have gotten, right? Like I wanted like dads from everywhere. And so I went out to find the dads, the seasoned veterans. I wanted these other dads that had known what to do, that had raised their daughters. And I asked each of them to put a chapter together to give me their sage advice on what they would do for a new father who had a daughter. Like, what would you do? What would you say? What would you tell me? What would you recommend? So selfishly, it was for myself because I wanted the Bible for having a daughter because I didn't know what to do. So those 10 dads put a chapter together, and then I took it kind of the next step, and I put together conversation starters at the end of each chapter based on the chapter that the other dad wrote, with the intention that fathers and daughters would literally get the book, kind of read it together, read a chapter, and kind of dads can think about it and digest it and then kind of improve the relationship with their daughter. And so I use it in that way for myself too.
So how old is your daughter now?
She is 3. She'll be 4 in February.
Oh, right on. Our daughters are about the same age. Mine will be 4 in December. So, awesome. have you actually started to use any of this with your daughter currently, or?
Well, some of the things are kind of simple, like the father-daughter conversations. There's a chapter from James Woosley put in a chapter, and he talked about specific like date night, like date weekends, like weekend trips and stuff he'd take with his daughter. So I started implementing the father-daughter date nights once a week. We went to all the free kids movies ever. That was like the best time of my life every morning. I try to go a couple times a week, but at least once a week we'd go to the free kids movie there, just her and I. And we'd take selfies and eat more popcorn. And then a lot of the other stuff is just more like introspection. So thinking about, it's like me reflecting on, like how protective I am, like if I'm too protective as a father, and kind of looking at the boundaries of it. And then thinking about, there's a chapter called Daddy, Will You Marry Me? And it was one of the gentlemen, his daughter had asked him that one day. She was like, Daddy, will you marry me? And it was kind of that idea of, as we think about the way we treat our wives, right? And how we treat their mothers is the standard that we set for our daughters of the man that they believe that they deserve to be with one day.
Yeah. That's that last point that you make. I mean, I don't like to toot my own horn, but my wife had a pretty great example of a father, and I feel like him and I really get along very well. And what you said there, like she married someone who's I would say is pretty similar to her father, and it just drives home the point that you need to whether it's a daughter or a son, I mean, you need to model the behavior of a good husband and a good father. So I really resonate with what you just said there. But I guess more of a fun question here. But what has been your, I guess, top experience doing these like daddy-daughter weekends? I mean, what's been the biggest, learning experience for you both? I mean, my daughter and I, we just went to a NASCAR race in Charlotte a couple weekends ago.
Oh, nice.
So we went and did that. And that was, she's already told me she wants a pink number 9 race car, and that's got my gears turning. So that's probably my top experience. But that's kind of, a good example, for you to maybe illustrate some of your top experiences there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Are you going to buy her a race car? Like a full size?
Of course. Me and my brother used to race back in the day too. So
really,
so now this is a little more ammunition I can use. Like, hey, hon, if I'm buying Piper a race car, I got to get myself a race car.
Right. Like she can't make me look bad. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, I'd say there's 2 of them, and one of them. The one lesson I learned is that it's extremely difficult actually to come up with random ideas to go take your daughter.
Yeah.
Depending on where you live and stuff and how much is available, but I had to find, I had to learn. The one thing I learned though is to take the pressure off myself. And I heard somebody say this, I don't want to take credit. I don't know where I heard it, but somebody said one time, stop calling it quality time. It's just time.
Yeah.
So like our daughters, like I put the pressure on me to think of like a perfect daddy-daughter date. And I'm like, it has to be Saturday morning at like 10 o'clock and it has to be, you know, like perfect. And it had to be like for a while, I thought it had to be every Tuesday night. And if I didn't do it on Tuesdays at 6 o'clock because she was tired or she was sleeping, like I was hard on myself. And then Chandler's like, you can just take her to breakfast. I'm like, oh, does that count? Like, you think so? Like when I was just hanging out with her today. But, so the one thing is I'd say is don't be so hard on yourself trying to make it perfect, but just realize that your daughters, what they need more than anything is just being present and giving them the time, because that's what they're going to remember. Because the one thing, and so there's 2 points to this. The one was the very first time I took her on a daddy-daughter date night is I took her out to Baskin-Robbins, went to Baskin-Robbins, and I discovered her fascination for strawberry ice cream. And I love cherry. I'm a cherry guy, so like absolutely anything that has a cherry within a 10-mile radius, I'm going to eat. Like if there's a cherry next to it, it's going in my belly. And so I love cherry ice cream. So I got my cherry ice cream and I got her the strawberry. And then for the next 2 weeks after that, every time we drove home past the Baskin-Robbins on the corner, she would ask me, she goes, can we go have daddy-daughter ice cream night again? And it was the cutest thing ever, like when she would refer to it as daddy-daughter ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter, go ahead and finish. I was going to bring up a good example of
just to hear her say that, you know, it's like the coolest thing ever. Like we'd be driving around with my wife then, and she would say, and she calls it, you know, she'll say, Mommy, that's where we went to see daddy-daughter movie night. And I'm just like, oh, I did that. Like I did that for you. Like, so you'll have that memory now. Like, you know, it feels good to create that.
Yeah. What's the most, I guess my daughter and I, like we live down here in Charleston. We can go to the beach. We went to the beach 2 nights a week right after I got out of work. But like some of the biggest memories that I think she is going to have is like, there's a little fishing pier at the local beach here. And there's like this like pavilion at the end of it. And all she wants to do is walk down the pier and chase daddy around in circles.
That's awesome.
Just chase me around in circles on the pier at the beach. Like some of these like simple things that you do as a father are going to be some of the most memorable. I mean, you just remembering your daughter, like laughing hysterically as you're just running in a circle on a wooden pier. You know, some of those simple things tend to be the most memorable. Do you have any examples of, you know, memories like that you've created for your daughter?
Yeah, we actually have at the apartment complex we live in, there's a little gazebo that's right over there. And so whenever we go outside, she wants to go hang out. She says, can we go sit in the zebo? So we call it the zebo. And then she'll do the exact same thing. Like she will literally just run and run and run until I'm tired. And she's still going. She's like, come chase me. Come chase me. Come chase me. And so I just chase her relentlessly around the zebo. And I say, you want to go to the zebo? And she's like, yeah. But I think what's not nearly as fun as that is, and I'm a huge movie guy. So like, I love going to the movies, and I love manifesting the LG 65-inch C7P that is going to be mine shortly. Yes. I'm on the cusp of greatness. But we were at the movies. Lennox and I were, and I was eating some of the popcorn there. And I'm like any good dad, I thought it was, you know, hilarious to throw some kernels at, you know, some popcorn pieces at her. And I whacked one of her straight into her eyeball, and then she started crying hysterically in the middle of the theater because I think I buttered her eye pretty good.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I gave a straight butter shot, like right to her eyeball, and she just stopped. She just froze and looked at me. It was like, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I felt so bad, but it was so funny too at the same time. I mean, I laughed. She didn't, but she's 3, so whatever. We're working on her sense of humor, you know. And then I was most devastated because she wouldn't let me watch the end of the movie. Like she was crying and she wanted to leave, and I'm like, it's the Emoji Movie. Like you have already seen it. I need to know what happens at the end.
Yeah. Emoji Movie. Come on.
Yeah, I was like, oh man. And then she kept running around and talking about the poop. after for like a week after that.
Yeah. So let's delve into a little bit of how you make all of this happen. I know you've got a lot going on. You're an author, TEDx speaker. What are some of the, like, how do you balance all of this and, keep it all in I don't know if balance is the right word. I kind of hate that word personally.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I tell people all the time, balance is an illusion.
Yeah.
It's all a lie.
But, how do you make it all happen? Like, what are some of the processes that you ensure? How do you keep that all flowing together in one cohesive, I know it's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time, but like, how do you keep it flowing, man?
Yeah, a lot more rainbows, not so much sunshine. But no, I think it's just for me, it's been more of the introspection and the process of like, it's been a matter of prioritizing, like, and people talk about how cliche that is of like there is no balance, it's just your priorities. But if I don't put it in the calendar, like, it doesn't happen. And as much as I want to talk about it and I think about it, like, I've gotten to the point where I've decided that my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, and then my relationship with my daughter are the three most important things. So like, as much as I want to get business done 24/7 and I want to get it done and I want to make it happen because I got to get results, you know what I mean? Like, I make it a priority to put date night in for the week with my daughter, date night in with my wife, and then church on Sunday. And then everything else just has to get prioritized. You have to look at what's left over. And I try to keep it to three things at most for the day. So those three big rocks, those three big tasks, those three things, like, if I can get three things done with a good solid amount of, 5 or 6 hours of work, then you got to give yourself a little grace and you got to feel good about that at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, this whole notion of putting in your 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, I think is a thing of the past. I mean, if you can rock out what you need to do in 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, I mean, I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, you can add the value that you need to add to the world in the minimum amount of time, and then spend it, on the other things that are important to you. I definitely agree with you on that.
Right. Because you do the same thing, don't you? I mean, do you have what's your process kind of look like for fitting it in? Are you like, do the work in the morning, do the work at night, sprinkle it in? Do you kind of?
I sprinkle it in. I mean, I still have my daytime job as an engineer for NOAA for one of their ships. So that's pretty heavy. What's that?
Is it do you work for the ARC? You said
the ARC,
NOAA?
yes.
Nice.
No, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
That guy. Right.
Yeah, that NOAA. The weather and ocean NOAA. But that's a pretty heavy burden. It's a needy ship. But I just wake up early and I optimize my sleep. I make sure I get a good amount of sleep every night. And this old adage of you need 8 hours of sleep. I hack that a little bit, even though I hate the word hack as well. But I just make sure that I get quality amount of sleep every night, and then I just wake up early. I do my morning routine. I try and pack as much into that morning routine. It's an hour long. Meditate, journal, read. I do my social media, quick social media post first thing in the morning before I do anything else. Get one of those knocked out, and then I'm off to the gym. I read a lot of audiobooks on 2x speed, so I try and pack. Yeah.
How do you retain that information on 2x?
Well, I'm basically what I do is I skim for golden nuggets, and I'll bookmark those areas, and then I'll go, like, if the book totally sucks, I'll just like, okay, all right, cool, I got some useful insights. But if it's an impactful book, then I'll go back and buy the physical book and then listen to it again while I skim through it, and then I'll tab the book, and if I have a highlighter handy, I'll highlight some golden nuggets there.
That's really interesting. So do you generally buy the audiobook first if you see something you're interested in?
Yes, because I spend a lot of time behind a computer desk, so I can, if I'm writing specifications for work items for my ship, that tends to be, there's obviously some conscious thought that has to go into that. But I could sit there and listen to an audiobook, somewhat passively and be able to comprehend most of what the book is saying. And it can tell if it's worthwhile actually buying the physical book. And I have a bit of a minimalist spirit to myself, so I tend not to just buy a lot of books just to buy a lot of books. If it's worth the space in my home, I'll buy it after I listen to the audiobook. So I mean,
that's
people will probably say, well, that's probably expensive, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? It's really streamlined my life. So, I also travel a lot on airplanes for my job and for my, I'm still a Navy reservist. I spent a good 12 hours on a plane flying to and from Italy. So I did that a lot too.
Ooh.
Listen to the audiobook while I'm reading the physical book. And I can get through 3 or 4 books that way per week.
Way. I'm super.
I mean, depending on the size of the book. I mean,
but that's
a Tony Robbins book, you probably need 2 weeks for that. But
man, see, I'm the complete opposite. So I'll have to tag you a picture of my bookshelf because it's overflowing. Like I have the shelves full. And then the shelf's full, a row in front of that shelf because there's extra books. Because I'm a thrift shop book kind of guy. So I go there and I'm like, oh, I scored the 4-hour body for like 75 cents. And I was like, people are so lame. They don't realize good books and they just donate them. Found a brand new copy of John Acuff. I waited till this lady put it down because she was looking at. I'm walking through, right? This lady's looking at the book and she picked it up, pulled it off the shelf. She spotted it before I did. And I waited, and I was like, you don't know stalking her. I'm like, put it down. You don't know what's good for you. And then she looked at it and went, huh, and then put it back, and I went, goink, yes.
Yeah.
And but that's interesting because I've debated myself, and I'm like, I kind of like the audiobooks, but sometimes they're too slow for me, and I don't have the time to sit and like consciously listen to them. Yeah. So, but like I'll power through a book. Like I'll just be like, I gotta read it and then get it all done and highlight it and tab it up. But then I just usually set it on the shelf. That's interesting.
I mean, you don't need to digest every single nugget or every single piece of information that's in a book. You just gotta mine for gold. One of my mentors, Nish Shobo, he runs the Sports Motivation podcast. That's his saying. You just gotta mine for gold. You're mining for gold. You gotta skim through it like. Keep your eye open for those golden nuggets that you can internalize yourself and then digest them and apply them to your life. So, I mean, books are, to me, you don't have, like, I used to be one of those guys, like, I got to read every word so that I don't miss a particular detail. I used to be like, reading books used to be, it caused me anxiety. I used to for 18 years, I did not pick up a book and read it end to end since graduating high school. Until I started, I started to get into GoRuck, and the founder of that company. Are you familiar with GoRuck?
Like the rucking people, those crazy backpackers?
Those crazy backpackers that do crazy stuff for 12, 24 hours. But the founder of that company, he recommended a book, and it was Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Okay. He's a retired FBI hostage negotiator. Nice. So he recommended the book, and he gave a discount for GoRuck events, like, hey, 10 or 20, whatever it was. Like, hey, if you buy this book and read it and send me the receipt, I'll give you a 20, whatever it was, coupon off for events or gear or whatever it was. So I read it end to end, and that kind of just that that kind of got the ball rolling with reading again, and nice. I can't stop reading.
That's awesome.
I actually hate reading, but I love learning new information.
You should put that on a t-shirt.
Thank you for tuning in to the Zero Excuses podcast. Join the conversation at kenyanzitska.com in our Facebook group. And don't forget to rate and subscribe to our show. We'll talk to you next week. And always remember, results, not excuses.